I didn't like Steven Spielberg's Disclosure Day very much. I found it very frustrating. I found it very frustrating while I was watching it. And the more I have thought about it in the weeks since, the more annoyed I have gotten. And I want to try to parse my feelings and explain why I find it so frustrating. This is going to involve spoilers for Disclosure Day. This is also going to involve me tying it into Spielberg's, really all of his 21st century filmography, but especially 2017's The Post and 2018's Ready Player One. So I'm going to have to explain how those movies work, what those movies are about, and how Disclosure Day ties into it. But Disclosure Day, the advanced critical reception was rapturous. And this got me very, very excited because I love Spielberg. Jaws is my favorite movie of all time. Advanced critical reception, again, rapturous. But then once it came out, the audience reception was very mixed. And I have a theory to explain why that is, at least partially. So Disclosure Day falls into a category of movie that I call a movie about the magic of storytelling. And movie directors, especially the longer they go in their career, especially the older they get, they love to make movies about this. They love to make movies about the power and the magic of the movies because it's kind of all they know. They haven't lived normal lives in a long time. Moreover, they've dedicated their lives to telling stories. So telling stories is the most important thing in the world.
Stories. There's nothing in the world more powerful than a good story.
Now, the critical reception of Disclosure Day from the movie critics, who I love and respect. I love movie critics. I love movie criticism. I've read lots of thoughtful pieces of criticism about Disclosure Day from critics who I respect, reviews that are glowing about Disclosure Day. But there is a thing I have noticed in my time on this earth from movie critics, which is that they tend to love movies that are about movies or movies that are about the power of storytelling. And I think I know why. I think that's because it flatters the movie critic. It flatters the cultural critic. If you're devoting your life to writing about movies or writing about cultural products, then it says to you that cultural products, that movies, that stories, they're not just movies. They're not just stories. In fact, they're about everything. They're about what movies can do, what stories can do to the wider world. So I am not just writing about movies. I'm writing about the forces that shape the world. But the thing is, general audiences don't find that as interesting as critics do. And if you listen to my podcast or if you watch my videos, you can probably tell which side of this argument I am on. Now, what I'm going to say here doesn't mean you shouldn't see Disclosure Day. You should see Disclosure Day. It's a Spielberg movie. He knows how to make a movie. John Williams came out of retirement to do the score for this movie. I love the way this movie looks. There's been some criticism about the way it looks. Some people don't like the sort of drab cinematography of late Spielberg, especially when he's using Janusz Kaminski as his cinematographer. But I really love the way that his modern movies look. So that was not an issue at all for me. And again, I do love Steven Spielberg. 2 years ago, my podcast, 1 Week Rental, devoted a whole summer to covering Steven Spielberg's movies and to learn about who he is as a person. But loving him as I do and knowing him the way I know him from all of that research makes me very aware of his flaws and especially his blind spots. So now there are going to be spoilers for Disclosure Day. Don't watch if you don't want Disclosure Day spoiled for you. But I will start with some praise for Disclosure Day. All the marketing about the movie made it very clear what this movie is about. It's sort of an Edward Snowden-esque information warrior or warriors trying to leak government secrets about aliens. And from the marketing, we can tell we're going to get two protagonists, Josh O'Connor and Emily Blunt. I'm just going to say the actors' names, not the characters' names, so that you'll know what I'm talking about. The movie opens with Josh O'Connor. He's in a scary confrontation with some bad guys at a wrestling match. And I love wrestling, so I was very excited to see wrestling. These bad guys, they're barking orders at him, and they're saying things that we don't entirely understand. 10 minutes into the movie, I am certain that this is an in medias res opening, and then we're going to back up. I bet you're wondering how I got here sort of thing. But people, I was so grateful to Spielberg that he does not do that. He has the confidence in the audience that you can keep up or you'll catch up. You'll catch up because you're watching Josh O'Connor in the middle of his story. And then we're going to go meet Emily Blunt, who's at the beginning of the story, and you'll be able to piece it together. I love that Spielberg made that decision. Emily Blunt, actually the real main character of the movie, plays a weather girl, does the weather for a Kansas City news station, but she wants to be a serious news anchor. She has a very warm and cute relationship with her boyfriend, Wyatt Russell. She shows him an audition tape that she made because she wants to be a news anchor. And we watch it, And we instantly get the sense, oh, is this movie going to end with Emily Blunt at the news desk delivering the disclosure news to the entire world? The answer might surprise you, but there's a little red bird that flies into Emily Blunt's apartment. She sort of has a connection with it and then starts to know things that she shouldn't know. She can speak Russian. She can read people's minds, speak other languages. What the hell is going on? And she feels a calling that ultimately leads her to meet up with Josh O'Connor so they can go on their mission together. And at this point, it's clear this is a modern spin on Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Steven Spielberg's movie from 1977. One of the greatest movies ever made, one of my favorite movies. An incredible movie if you've never seen it. Richard Dreyfuss in that movie is like Emily Blunt in this movie in that they're both very good at playing the terror of suddenly knowing things that you shouldn't know. I mean, remember Richard Dreyfuss in that movie. How do I know these things? She's really good at playing the awe, but also the horror of knowing things she shouldn't know. Then she meets up with Josh O'Connor. They're on the run from the police and the feds. This is all very reminiscent of Richard Dreyfuss and Melinda Dillon in Close Encounters when they're trying to sneak into the Devil's Tower compound. This isn't a critique. Like, I like the idea of revisiting the central premise and the themes of Close Encounters of the Third Kind 50 years later. Close Encounters, it's one of the best movies ever made. It ends with this note of extreme optimism, a unifying idea about what first contact with aliens is going to mean for humans as a species. Now, all these decades later, as the world has just descended into madness and chaos, the planet burns. What might Spielberg have to say about what it would look like today and how humanity will react to the news? Unfortunately, as the movie goes on, I start to realize, given the moment we're living in, given the past decades we've lived through, I think Steven Spielberg might be the worst person to tell that story. And a thing nags at me as the movie goes on. It becomes sort of a Minority Report-esque chase between cops and heroes. And I thought, I love Close Encounters and I love Minority Report, two great flavors mixed together, peanut butter and chocolate. So I'm into this movie for the first half. But I start to get a sinking feeling. Spielberg is kind of taking us on a tour of his mind palace. They hop onto a train, a cargo train, that is very reminiscent of young Indiana Jones and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. This tour of middle America that he's taking us through, it starts to feel like the suburbs of his early movies, the 70s and 80s movies, the magic and wonder of the suburbs from that time. And then I realize what the nagging feeling is. It's that this movie is set in the present. And so as I'm watching the movie, I go through my mental Rolodex of Spielberg movies. When was the last time Steven Spielberg made a movie set in the present that wasn't set in the past or the future? And it was War of the Worlds in 2005, which is a great movie. I think a great movie that beautifully captured the moment, the post 9/11 moment of paranoia, of dislocation. But the world he is capturing now of 2026, it just seems off, like he doesn't want to be in 2026. So our main characters, they enter their own histories, their own mind palaces, and we get to see their childhood homes. But it feels like we're looking at homes of children from the 70s, even though like his set decorator is careful to put like Nintendo cartridges and VHS tapes, it still feels off. I get more and more frustrated as the movie is going on that a movie about the most important event in human history turns into a story about Emily Blunt's character's childhood trauma. It just doesn't fit comfortably into the story that Steven Spielberg seemed like he was trying to tell, but it's obvious to me that he's way more comfortable telling a story about childhood trauma than telling a story about the state of humanity in 2026. There are two other major characters I haven't talked about yet. There is Eve Hewson. She plays Jane, the girlfriend of the Josh O'Connor character. Eve Hewson is great in this movie. She's also the daughter of Bono. Are you someone who hopes to act in movies one day? Is your father Bono? No reason, but she is really great in this movie. Josh O'Connor explains to her that he worked at this fictional non-governmental organization called Wardex. The movie keeps insisting this isn't the government. This is a non-government organization, but it's basically a government contractor like Blackwater. Or, I mean, honestly, it's like most people know what Blackwater is. This is like a company that you've never heard of, but their job is they do covert operations on behalf of the government so that it can remain off books, completely off the books, no transparency. Josh O'Connor tells Eve Hewson that during his time working at Wardex, he became aware of a trove of evidence of government cover-ups, of contact with aliens. And not just contact, but medical experiments, torture of aliens, and we see it. He shows it to her. It's extremely upsetting. It changes everything for her watching government scientists performing surgery on aliens. And these are your classic gray aliens from movies. Another thing I was grateful for, just give us gray aliens. It's fine. Because we're sort of dealing with the meta narrative about what we think about aliens that we've inherited from pop culture, including from movies that Spielberg has himself directed. The tagline of Disclosure Day is, "We deserve to know," which of course suggests that outside of the world of this movie, us living in the real world, watching this movie at home, we deserve to know what the government is hiding from us, and which I believe I want disclosure. We're never going to get it. There's never going to be a moment where the government like releases the documents that say like, okay, yeah, the CIA killed Kennedy or whatever it is. We're never going to get that. I think it'd be good if we did, but we're never going to get it. But Eve Hewson's character has an interesting reaction to this. Her character is a devout Christian, and she says to her boyfriend, like, maybe it's not a good idea for you to release this to the world. Maybe this could destabilize everything and have totally unintended consequences. Her objections are all rooted in her Christianity, but it's at least an interesting idea for the movie to raise. But Spielberg then bats it down because she has her contact a nun who tells her, don't worry, people will still believe in God even if there are aliens. There's nothing in the Bible that contradicts aliens, whatever. So that's that. Or is it? Because the other major character of the movie who I haven't mentioned is the antagonist, the villainous Noah Scanlon, head of the Wardex Corporation, played by Colin Firth. He is your classic movie fed who is on the trail of our heroes. His job is stopping the public from knowing what we deserve to know, the truth. He's an agent of the ruling class, basically. They know how the world should work, and it's their privilege to decide what we know and what we don't know. The thing is, if you look at Close Encounters, it's so obvious Steven Spielberg, his on-screen avatar is Richard Dreyfuss, and he has said as much. In 1977, he would happily, Steven Spielberg, have gotten on an alien spaceship and flown away to see the wonders that they have to show him. And just think of where he was in his life at the time. He wasn't a family man yet. He later said, yeah, I have kids now. I wouldn't get on that spaceship. But man, he's like coming into his own as a filmmaker, and at the top of his power and success, he and his friends have taken on the Hollywood establishment, and they are winning. So just sort of the tantalizing possibility of what is ahead of him. Interface with the sublime by getting on this alien spaceship. A young man's vision, something he probably doesn't relate to so much anymore. More than that, it's 50 years later, and Steven Spielberg is the establishment, not just of Hollywood. I mean, he moves in the establishment ruling class powers of the world. He's friends with Obama. He's made movies like Saving Private Ryan, TV shows like Band of Brothers that the government says, yeah, these help us in recruiting. And that's not me criticizing Saving Private Ryan or Band of Brothers. Those are both great. But they do have the effect of creating and instilling in an audience of young men a feeling of patriotism that then may motivate them to go fight in America's modern wars. And then Spielberg has made other movies like Lincoln, Amistad, Bridge of Spies, and The Post that are part of shaping the story of America that America wants to tell about itself, which is like, hey, America's pretty good. It's not perfect. We have some rough spots, but when we're not perfect, it's because the wrong people are in charge. We just got to get the right people in charge, and ultimately the system works, and it's worth preserving. And of course, Steven Spielberg thinks this because that system is what he was able to ride to the height of powers. So of course it's good. It allowed me, Steven Spielberg, to succeed. If there is a character, therefore, in the movie who stands in for Steven Spielberg, it's Colin Firth. Whether Spielberg realizes this or not, he's on the side of the government, bureaucrats, who insist that they know what's best for us. And if he could own that in the movie, it would make for a much more interesting movie. Or if he did a little interrogating about his own role in shaping the modern American myth, and maybe making movies like Saving Private Ryan and Lincoln and Amistad, maybe they made us trust the government a little too much. But there's no introspection whatsoever. And it's the same thing that's frustrating about Ready Player One, where the characters in that movie live in a virtual reality of intellectual property, including intellectual properties that Spielberg himself created. And then there's the character in the movie played by Mark Rylance, the Halliday character, who basically is Steven Spielberg. And all these characters have to operate within the mind palace of this character. But Spielberg himself has nothing to say about any of this. Wouldn't it be interesting if Spielberg had to question, is it good what I did? Is it good that everybody lives in this world that I have created? No, he's not interested in interrogating that at all. Disclosure Day, the final act of the movie has Emily Blunt's news station broadcasting the disclosure. That's where the climax of the movie takes place. Our heroes take control of the station. They do this epic news broadcast. They start showing videos of aliens to people around the world. And then we have to bring up Steven Spielberg's 2017 movie The Post, because that is what it really starts to feel like at this point. So The Post. I do like The Post, mainly because it has a lot of actors I like and they're giving performances that are very good. But I think it's, in retrospect, one of Steven Spielberg's most naive pieces of propaganda. If you don't remember The Post, it is a movie about the heroes at the Washington Post in the early 1970s. It's a true story. They published the Pentagon Papers. The Pentagon Papers was a series of classified documents produced by the Rand Corporation on behalf of the Pentagon. Basically, tell us how the war in Vietnam is going. So at the same time that the government is saying to the American people, the war in Vietnam is going great, we're going to win any day now, they have their own assessment which says, no, we're never going to win this. It's going so much worse than we could ever have imagined. So the fine folks at the Washington Post, they're like, we got to publish this because the public deserves to know. And then part of the conflict of the movie is that like the government forces start mobilizing to try to stop the Washington Post from publishing it, but they fight the good fight and they win. Spielberg made The Post in 2017 because Donald Trump had just been elected. Donald Trump had made criticizing the media a centerpiece of his appeal, and sort of the opposition to Trump thought, well, if he's attacking the press must be good. And that's like a reasonable conclusion. I certainly agreed with it at the time. And to be clear, I hate Trump. But the thing is, occasionally he gets things right for the wrong reasons, but occasionally he does get things right. The American media, it exists to prop up the ruling class. It manufactured consent for the Iraq war. Earlier this year, we saw how much they were desperate to go to war with Iran. Even the quote unquote liberal publications like the New York Times, please give us a war with Iran. Please give us a war with Iran. And the little characters in Spielberg's movie, The Post, Ben Bradley, the Tom Hanks character, Katharine Graham, the Meryl Streep character, they were part of building up support in the public for the Vietnam War. They only come to oppose it when they realize it's an unwinnable war, basically. That's the conflict. Oh, maybe we shouldn't have supported it because we couldn't win. The problem isn't that we killed all those millions of people in Southeast Asia. The problem is our own soldiers died for a losing cause. The thing about the Pentagon Papers, though, which the public did deserve to know about, but they didn't do anything. People knowing about them didn't do anything. It shaped public opinion, but the war kept going. And public opinion quickly turned against the wars in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in our lifetimes, but the wars went on for decades. Stephen Yeun's character in Sorry to Bother You, Boots Riley's movie from 2018, he says what I always return to, this quote, if you get shown a problem, but you have no idea how to control it, then you just decide to get used to the problem. It's the problem with spreading awareness. We do deserve to know things, but we also need to know what to do about the things that we learn. Disclosure Day. In the background of this movie, we have a looming potential war between America and Russia, it would be World War III. It might end the world, nuclear catastrophe. The news broadcasts that are going on in the background of the movie are very dark and grave. Just as the world is about to end and the news broadcasts are like, here we go, here comes the nuclear Armageddon. Ooh, we interrupt this broadcast to give you Emily Blunt. She has something to say about aliens, and they show the videos. And wow, the world comes to a halt to watch the news. Shot after shot of crowds of people making Spielberg's face in awe, watching TVs through glass storefront windows, or people just standing on a subway station looking at their phones. It's one moment experienced as by the entire human species. It's the power of storytelling when you think about it. It's the power of going to a movie theater and all watching the same thing at the same time. And the movie's suggestion is that now the American and Russian militaries are going to cease hostilities because after all, we're just one human species. Our differences don't matter, do they? Viewers in Disclosure Day are watching all of this happen. They're processing it. Oh my God, aliens are real and we've treated them horribly. We've committed war crimes on the aliens. We are seeing alien children who are mutilated and being carried away in stretchers in images that evoke the Holocaust. That's when I start to feel a little offended by the movie, especially because these images also evoke real life images we've seen coming out of Gaza for the past 3 years. The world has seen these images come out of Gaza, reacted with horror, and nothing has changed. It has gone on. It doesn't matter what people in America or the rest of the world think. Spreading awareness has done nothing. Like Steven Yeun says, you'll make people just accept it as part of one of those things that happens in the world. This sequence in Disclosure Day, when the world comes to a standstill to experience this singular collective moment of awe and horror in a world where our divisions are so huge, we thought we could never overcome them and experience a thing as one people and all understand it the same way. It's the centerpiece climax of the movie. It's so well done. It's so extraordinary. Spielberg knows what he's doing, knows where to put the camera, knows how to manipulate you into feeling a feeling. And I think it's embarrassing. It rings so false to me because I know that for Steven Spielberg, he thinks that the only thing that exists in the world is a story. We need to tell people a story. If people heard a different story, they would start believing different things. If the world knew the truth about aliens, countries would never go to war with each other again because what would be the point? We're just one species after all. But here's what I believe. If and when we learn aliens are real, here's what's going to change. Nothing. We're going to assimilate it into our knowledge and our belief system and our understanding. There will be political divisions about the aliens and what we should do with them. There will be a pro-alien coalition that will take over one party and an anti-alien coalition that will take over the other party, because politics is not about a story. It's a contest of power. Telling a different story isn't going to change that. So there's another director out there currently making movies who's reached similar heights of power and success as Steven Spielberg and is similar to Steven Spielberg in age, who is currently making movies. His name is James Cameron, and he's made 3 straight movies about aliens in a row. And I just think about the world of the Avatar movies. What was it like when the people on Earth learned that there are aliens out there in the universe? They live on a planet called Pandora, or a moon called Pandora. I don't remember. But yeah, that moment was probably so incredible. Wow, this changes everything. And then what did we decide to do? We decided to go kill them. Go to war with them because they have stuff we want. And that's what would actually happen is, oh, there are aliens. Do they have stuff we can get? Great. Nothing actually changes. Telling a story, learning new things, none of this stuff matters. And I just feel embarrassed for Steven Spielberg. But if you like Disclosure Day, I don't blame you. It is a very well-made movie. And if you think I'm full of shit, I don't blame you for that either. And tell me why you think I'm full of shit. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much.